99 units made worldwide, 6-speed manual only, 500 horsepower at 8,250 RPM from a Le Mans pedigree naturally aspirated flat 6. The 2016 Porsche 911R is one of the last true analog Porsche halos, and it costs more used today than it did brand new. Welcome back to Buy or Buy, the channel that breaks down every known problem with used cars so you don't waste your money. All right, let's dive straight into this explainer.
Section 1. Who this car is actually for.
Let's get one thing totally straight right out of the gate. If you think this is just another 911 to cruise down to the golf course in, you're in the wrong demographic. We're speaking directly to the serious Porsche collector here, the halo investor who's got $400,000 to $700,000 sitting there ready to deploy. When you look at the cross-shop list, we're talking about buyers actively comparing this thing against the 991.2 GT3 Touring, the wingless successor that essentially absorbed the 911R concept, but at a much lower price. Or they're looking at the ultra-rare 991 Speedster, maybe the 992 Sport Classic, which sits north of 300 grand. They might even be considering the 991.1 GT3 RS, which ironically was the actual engine donor for this car, and yet somehow costs less money today. And at the absolute top end of the spectrum, we're talking buyers eyeing bespoke Singer resto mods or even a Porsche Carrera GT at $2 million plus. The buyer for the 911R values exact, uncompromised traits over absolutely everything else.
They want that 500 horsepower, naturally aspirated flat 6. They want the lightest 991 credentials. And man, they desperately want that 1967 911R nameplate callback. Bottom line, the 911R buyer values single-year 99-unit production, manual-only purity, and the 1967 heritage.
Section 2. Where it shines. Now, we all know the 911R has this mythical reputation, but let's strip away all the lore for a second and look at the actual engineering and market wins. Visually, it strikes this perfect balance, pairing that aggressive GT3-style front bumper with a super clean, wingless rear. And of course, that iconic heritage stripe right down the center. It really boils down to three undeniable areas where this car completely justifies its legendary status. We've got a powertrain pinnacle, obsessive, lightweight engineering, and a unique collectability profile that Porsche rarely ever offers.
The sheer mechanical stubbornness from Stuttgart on this one is what makes it a genuine pinnacle. Porsche literally ripped the 4.0-liter naturally aspirated flat 6 straight out of the 991.1 GT3 RS. It pushes exactly 500 horsepower at 8,250 RPM and 338 pound-feet of torque, screaming all the way to an 8,500 RPM redline. But here is the real magic. Porsche absolutely refused to offer their PDK dual-clutch automatic, 6-speed manual only. In an era where literally everything was moving to paddle shifts, this was a massive, massive line in the sand.
Moving on to the second win, which really builds on that whole purity ethos, the lightweight engineering is very real. At a curb weight of 3,020 pounds, or 1,370 kilos, this is the lightest 991 generation Porsche ever produced. And they achieved this by stripping it down to its absolute core. It's got a magnesium roof, it has carbon fiber front fenders and a carbon fiber hood. They threw the rear seats in the garbage. They installed carbon fiber bucket seats, cloth door pull loops, and get this, they even made the radio and air conditioning optional deletes. Oh, and those standard yellow PCCB carbon ceramic calipers? They save some absolutely crucial unsprung mass too.
And that brings us to the third win, unique collectability. They only made 991 of these worldwide for a single 2016 model year. Only about 296 of those actually made it to the US market. It's a direct, unapologetic callback to the ultra-rare 1967 911R. Now, this scarcity created an absolute market frenzy, which we're going to talk about in a second, but as a pure collector's piece, it is practically peerless.
When you combine the engine, the aggressive diet, and the extreme scarcity, the mechanical brilliance is just undeniable. Bottom line, it shines as the ultimate analog 991, pairing the GT3 RS 4.0-liter with a manual transmission and the lightest chassis.
Section 3. Where it disappoints.
Oh boy, do we have some harsh financial realities to discuss now, because it's time to talk about collector hubris and the painful consequences of treating a car like a crypto token. The dominant story of the 911R is honestly one of the most embarrassing speculative bubbles in modern automotive history. See, the original MSRP in 2016 was a somewhat reasonable $184,900. But because allocations were strictly gated to VIP Porsche customers, flippers immediately turned around and sold them. Peak prices famously touched $1.3 million. Insane, right? But then Porsche did something absolutely hilarious. They announced the unrestricted 991.2 GT3 Touring, which was basically the exact same wingless, manual, 4.0-liter, naturally aspirated concept, but with absolutely no production limit. Boom! Scarcity premium evaporated almost overnight. Today, you're looking at a stabilized market of $400,000 to $700,000. The guys who bought at the absolute peak got absolutely annihilated, and the future trajectory still remains pretty uncertain.
And trust me, the financial pain doesn't just stop at depreciation. The ownership cost reality is brutal. When those standard Porsche carbon ceramic brakes eventually wear out, and they will, usually around 50 to 70,000 miles if you drive it hard, a full replacement is going to run you between $25,000 and $35,000 minimum. That 4.0-liter flat six, it requires highly dedicated Porsche specialist servicing. If a rock dents that magnesium roof, you need Porsche-specific parts and highly specialized repair procedures. Even the rear axle steering system, which it shares with the GT3, has rare reports of failures that will instantly cost you $3,000 to $8,000 to fix.
So the crucial takeaway here is that you are paying hypercar maintenance prices for a car with massive usability compromises. This is emphatically not your daily drivable Porsche. The optional single-mass flywheel dramatically increases cabin noise and drivetrain vibration. You're dealing with cloth door pull loops, scanned cabin insulation, zero rear seats to toss your bags in, and that aging 991.1 generation PCM 4.0 infotainment system that feels distinctly dated now. This is exactly why so many used examples currently on the market have under 5,000 miles. People buy them, realize exactly how raw and uncompromising they are, and just immediately park them in a garage.
You seriously need to know exactly what you are getting into before you sign that check. Bottom line, the speculative market crashed hard, and maintaining those carbon ceramic brakes or the magnesium roof requires a massive budget.
Section 4. The numbers that matter. All right, let's fire off the exact, locked-in data points that define this single-year halo car. Keep up. The 911R debuted at Geneva on March 1, 2016, and was built exclusively at Porsche AG's Stuttgart-Zuffenhausen facility in Germany. It uses that 3,996cc 4.0-liter naturally aspirated flat six pulled directly from the 991.1 GT3 RS. It drops 500 horsepower at 8,250 RPM and 338 pound-feet of torque through a rear-wheel drive layout with 911R enhanced rear axle steering. 0 to 60, that happens in a blistering 3.7 to 3.8 seconds.
Now check this out, because this brilliantly illustrates Porsche's aerodynamic mastery. If you compare the drag profile of the 911R's wingless Carrera-style body against the massive fixed-wing aero of its engine donor, the 991.1 GT3 RS, you'll see something pretty fascinating. Because they deleted that giant rear wing, the 911R actually produces way less aerodynamic drag. And as a result, it achieves a higher top speed than the GT3 RS, topping out at an incredible 201 miles per hour.
Let's aggressively re-anchor those dollar figures so we're all on the same page. The original base US MSRP was $184,900, with a typically optioned sticker hitting around $216,760. Today, firmly post-bubble in 2026, you are looking at $400,000 to $550,000 for higher mileage examples, and $550,000 to $700,000 for pristine, low-mileage, collector-quality cars.
These are the absolute numerical truths of the car. Bottom line, the numbers reflect a single-year 2016 model with 991 units worldwide, settling into a $400K to $700K reality. Verdict: buy. Let me be incredibly clear on how to actually navigate this transaction. If you are deploying $500,000, you must be surgical. Buy a documented low-mileage example. Buy a car with a full, unbroken Porsche service history. You want an intact original radio, or, interestingly enough, you want one of the factory-deleted radio cars because those are actually worth a slight premium to the absolute extreme purists. But above all, you must have documentation proving the health of the original PCCBs or paperwork showing a very recent replacement. On the flip side, say bye immediately to any example with incomplete service records. Walk away from any car missing that documented PCCB health check. As we covered, a bad set of carbon ceramic brakes will completely ruin the entire financial equation of your purchase. And absolutely run from any car showing signs of undocumented track abuse. I mean, sure, there might be a case for buying a higher mileage documented track car at the absolute rock bottom of the price range, but only if you actually plan to drive it into the ground yourself. Stripped of its ridiculous $1.3 million speculative bubble, the 911R remains one of the last true analog Porsche halos. It's the lightest 991 ever produced, it's got the magnesium roof, no PDK ever, no fixed wing, and it pairs a beautiful 6-speed manual with a 500 horsepower naturally aspirated engine that just screams to 8,250 RPM. At the newly rationalized $400,000 to $700,000 price point, it is an absolutely magnificent machine.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this to argue about in the comments. At $500,000, does the wingless 911R represent the ultimate, unrepeatable analog peak of Porsche engineering? Or is it really just a beautifully executed parts bin special that the market temporarily lost its mind over? Think about it. See you on the next one.